I am loving journaling. I'm like intentionally doing it more often, and it's definitely helped, especially when you're somebody who talks a lot in your head.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was suggested, to write gratitude every morning. Well, I do 12-step programs. My mentor at the time, she'd ask me questions, like, what's your, relationship with a higher power? She'd give me all different type of questions. She wasn't expecting an answer, and then maybe later on in the next morning when I'd sit, I meditate every morning and would journal. It turned into me drawing the picture. So then I get on the phone with her the next time. I take a picture and I'm like, here it is. Whether it's my ego, and or to let go and to see that the universe is guiding me. That's where a lot of my doodles started off. They were a lot of them were spiritual. To find joy in the moment, to find the gratitude, to find faith and trust the process. Because of me going through some difficulties, I'm going to start off with letting you know how my doodle art started and how they kind of evolved, and it actually helped me grow and process emotions, character building, my own personal growth, my own inner, self discovery and reflections. And I am Tommy, and I am a doodle expressionist. I'm going to start a little bit backwards before we get to the doodles. I embrace Tommy as a gender fluid person, and as journaling and going through some difficulties. It's right around say like November 2022, and all my journaling started coming in, and I started working on inner child work in early of 2023. I discovered an uncle at 8 years old used to call me Tommy. That was many moons ago. My grandfather called me Tommy as well, both of them. He'd give me a baseball glove and take me out, give me a milk crate to stand on so I can work on the car with him. The last thing I wanted was my grandmother to try to curl my hair or do this and do that. I enjoyed that they called me Tommy. That memory came back just doing that inner child work, and they knew. That's where I embraced Tommy from. The doodle art started just around November 2022. I was in a long distance relationship, hadn't met that person yet. I had been talking to her from about June or very beginning of June or July. We were talking a lot, and to where there was a very quick bond and connection. Now I look back in hindsight, it was a quick trauma bond because in my early journals, I already had questions of gaslighting and confusion. I was very confused. That's why I went to my mentor. I had a lot of self-doubt, and she was asking me about my faith and spirituality. When I talk about a God or a universe or a higher power, to me, it's not a religion, it's a spirituality. It's something that's greater than myself. Someone suggested that I try two-way prayer. There are Zoom meetings, and I can write as an individual. It's basically kind of manifesting, putting that question out there. If you haven't heard of the two-way prayer, as I'm journaling with intention. So I can ask a question, and then as I sit and meditate, it's what I feel here, not what the hamster wheel is telling me here. I wound up going into some Zoom meetings where there were approximately somewhere anytime 20 to 30 people. In the beginning of the meeting, they would read a little sort of beginning about what two-way prayer is. They would say, nothing's wrong, nothing's right, nothing's impure, or pure or wrong, or this or that. Just right. Literally, it's writing just as whatever's coming to my mind to take that out of my conscious or ask questions. It literally was just like, I believe whatever words come to my mind, and without going back and correcting it or trying to make it sound right, and just write. Then once we did for 10 minutes in a quiet space on that Zoom meeting, they put us in breakout meetings. There was 3 total, and we each take turns reading. So what happens is, for example, if you and I were to do that together today, and we took 10 minutes and then we read to each other, I would listen to what you're writing as if it's a message from the universe, not to critique, so to speak, but to listen to what I need to hear. And sometimes it may just be one sentence in there that will come to me and be that message that I've been looking for. Because the universe, the people outside are talking through other people, giving us messages. I need to be awake for that in order to take those messages and hear the message. When I have basically my head in my butt and I'm not open to the universe and I don't have a faith and a trust in the process, I'm not hearing those messages. The two-way prayer, I think I did it solid every morning about 8 a.m. Eastern Time, and for a couple of months. Then the doodles came into the doodle art then happened because now I have this woman who's, now working with me. I mean, I'd go into those, what was happening, talking to that person in the long distance relationship. I guess, like I said, in hindsight, I realized there were wounds that had been now opened and unraveled from years ago. I didn't even know were that deep from childhood. So I'm having all this confusion and everything and emotion, and I didn't know how to manage it because I wasn't told how to manage emotions as a young child in my family and family of dysfunction. The doodle art, then that's when I really got into it. As she would say to me, "What brings you joy?" I'd write big letters, joy, and all around it, I write in it where I can find joy within myself, or how can I help others and be of service. A lot of them started out, I have about 70 doodle art pieces scanned, and I'm a little bit halfway through. As of recent, I've been doing more of collecting the content and writing than I have actually been creating newer pieces. I just started getting into it. As I scan these pieces, I can see they went through a spiritual process. Then it went through how to process some emotion and anger that I didn't know about. That's kind of how the doodle art has started. I just told you how I embraced Tommy. And then, I continued with them, as well as 12-step programs. I used two different ones, and then therapy. And at the time, in the beginning, that therapy, they were more just listening to me at the time. And then actually an outside friend who is also a psychologist, she goes, "You're doing your own CBT therapy." I said, "I just like to draw. I always like to kind of doodle, going to art college and everything. I liked it. I started drawing in books like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always say through dark, difficult times is when we learn our lessons and find our purpose as well. I was in that relationship. I met that person for a week, and then they came to me for about a week, and then we met again about a month later after that for 2 weeks. But during this time, I went back and read it. Like, I don't typically go back to read my journaling. I had a lot of questions. That's when I started in February of 2023, February, beginning of March of 2023, I started what's called ACA, Adult Children Alcoholics, for dysfunctional families. That's where I discovered a lot of my confusion at the time came from my early, like I identified with it. So that long distance relationship, I was used to that chaos and excitement, everything that was kind of going on. It was very familiar to my childhood, which I had never really took a deep dive or even thought of it, because I always said, oh, hey, I am just your typical child product of the 70s. I played outside till the street lights came on, or whatever it was. I didn't realize how I was told that I had to grow up too young. I had parents who were emotionally unavailable. That's what a lot of my doodle art pieces really process. I'm actually going to look real quick. Some of them, if you don't mind for a minute, I'm going to look real quick. Some of the early on ones, I'm going to just name a couple. And I'd like to go in, how they've helped people already. Like if we're familiar with the Serenity Prayer, I made like a flow chart of it. And then opening my heart to God. That's part of trusting the process for me, for God's will, because my ego got in the way. That one was like kind of like a teeter-totter, where if I had my ego, I wasn't really in God's will. I wasn't letting go. I was trying to take control of everything. I have joy. I have believing in myself. Do what you love. God is love. Or choose to be kind. I have an intimacy one. Staying humble. I have a lot fear and anger. Then that's when I started getting into a lot of my own emotional safety, trauma bonding, finding my true self. Who is Tommy? Then I come into gaslighting, forgiveness, self-esteem. I use mind maps. That's the order. I'm chronologically scanning them because that's where the story is. I believe I will continue to the doodle art as I evolve as a person and spiritually and emotionally grow. How they have helped others now is I made mind maps. I'll just put the word self-esteem in the middle, and I drew little lines out to the corners, and they have little things. For one in particular, self-esteem's pretty common for a lot of things that, as far as either in relationships or just how we deal with people on a regular basis, what I'm thinking, what people are thinking of me. I hear people, I say, well, let's just go with this self-esteem. What have you accomplished? What is your passions? What triggers my self-esteem? What am I thinking? And maybe add some positive affirmations. So those were like the four corners of that mind map. Part of it is clarity, because I couldn't grow until I did find some clarity. For example, in that long distance relationship, that person was telling me I was emotionally dysregulated. It was definitely a lot of gaslighting and manipulation. Until I found clarity that it was from my actual childhood, then I was able to not focus on that person in the relationship, but to really focus on where it came from in the root, which is where I had that picture. Early on, I realized doing the ACA program, I realized I never liked liars. It would really, really take up my energy and time. I mean, even now as an adult, and always, I was like, I just don't like it. I can really feel it and sense it. Then finally working through it's a yellow workbook. I think I had it. I thought I had it close by. I don't see it right now. It's a yellow workbook. It has some summaries and a little bit of how it works. It has questions. It just dawned on me one day while I was in that workbook talking to the person who's helping me go through it. I said, my mother used to lie to me at like 7 years old, 8 years old. She'd like be going, I'm going to work. And then she'd come home. She'd go to work, but then she was staying late. And here I am alone at 7, 8 years old. She'd come home all dressed up. I was like, well, she went out. And I knew, it's like, well, you don't have your work clothes on anymore. Here I am, a 7, 8 year old, and I knew, so I sensed it. So as an adult, I sensed it. But you know what? Now, if someone wants to lie to me, I know that's just a reflection of them. I don't let it eat my lunch, so to speak. I don't let it take away my energy and ruin my day.
I like that saying. I'm gonna steal it.
Right? I was able to drop that that's belief, I guess, if that's the right word for it. When I found the root of it, it just made it so much easier to navigate in today. When I started processing all of those with my doodle art and finding where the root was of it, I was able to make more of a healthier detachment or start breaking that trauma bond. It wasn't easy. Trauma bond is definitely an addiction. And there's people out there that say it's worse than coming off of any drug, like a hard drug or, addictions. It's an addiction as it was just little bits of growth each time, but it's a practice. Like it's sometimes a daily practice on certain things. We all grow differently. I used a lot of yoga, a lot of sound healing. I just use different sounds. I do a lot of music, a lot of dance, swimming. I've been blessed. I mentor women now, and I ask them to find gratitude in the difficulties. How we can find, for example, gosh, I was late going to work, then this person got my way, and then now they're making me later. You know what? Maybe that's meant to be, because maybe you're being detained for a reason, that you're being redirected. There's that message right there in that moment. I'm being redirected. But even through that long distance relationship, I ended up where I am in St. Pete, because I was in Georgia at the time. A mutual friend asked us to come on up to Pass-a-Girl, and we did for the day. We hung out and then left. After that, when we both went home and things didn't really work out well, it kept going back and forth. I mean, again, there's that trauma bond. It was really chaotic, but then there was just enough to soothe me in my mind to where I didn't realize. Finally, I did go back and read my journals from, it was started in like August of 2023, where I was really blocking this person at this point now because it's toxic for me. I ended up going, though, back to Pass-a-Girl on my own in June of 2023. It was totally spiritual, and that's when I said, I want to be here. That darkness and difficulties really give me the best lessons, personal growth, and my own character building, as much as resilience that I want to put into it to find my purpose. The doodle art is, a part of it, because now I'm trying to figure out why the hell am I so confused, early on. All the journaling and the two-way prayer. Started with the two-way prayer, brought me into the doodle art work, and then here I am redirected here, where I was able to live on the beach for a year, and that water was so healing for me. I really believed, the universe put me there to heal, and to be able to have this time to work on this doodle art and help others in the process. Unfortunately, I got a little redirected, from the hurricane, but I'm still not far. I'm about 8 to 10 miles from the beach. We're still a lot better than when I was in Atlanta. I was totally landlocked there. I really, really love that awareness and clarity. I've helped people with that perfectionism and procrastination, and all of it is my self-worth. There's something back there in that root, that belief, or something to say, a parent saying, or a sibling, or whoever, the teacher saying, you must do better. So now I need to be this perfectionist, all my life. That's where those traits come in. Now I'm here. I find gratitude. And now I have a purpose to help others. The universe definitely has a sense of humor. And we just connected. I tried connecting with that person on Instagram. I just said, hey, do me a favor. Take a look at my content on my Instagram. If any of it resonates to you, I hope, and I said, just good luck. That was it. Then months later, that person said to me, what were you trying to tell me? I said, what do you mean? I've helped them, and I sent them the trauma bonding and the gaslighting. I said, educate yourself, find some education. It's a really good friendship. Part of it is I can share from my own experience. I don't ever should, would, you need. I just say, this is what's worked for me. Here's my doodle art where I was going through these emotions. And like I said, when they look at it, there may be 10 things on there. Even if 2 of them sort of all of a sudden they go, oh, I do that. Or I feel that way. So write out those emotions, and do that. Getting rid of anger too. I got rid of anger for me. I wrote a trigger list. But that's a lot of fear. So to find our fears. When I'm in fear, I'm really not in my higher power. I'm in my own ego again. Fear is my ego. Fear is myself. Where I'm not just trusting the process and staying in the now, finding that message, that person who wants to come and talk to me. I always use it. I hear random people in the supermarket. I use that example. Sometimes I walk out in that parking lot and I'm like, what did that woman just say? Does that ever happen to you?
When you were talking about the two-way prayer, I was thinking, I feel like that is why so many of us are watching podcasts. No, it's not. I thought I was trying to learn, but I feel like it's more that you're looking for that one line that you're going to catch on.
I hear you.
Sometimes I just post random stuff because I'm told that is one way to reach more people. I'm trying to listen. But it's very interesting when you read something or you hear something or you write something and then later you work with a client and they're like, I'm going through this. I'm like, I just journal about that this morning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even though we live in such separate worlds, completely different lives, things are aligning.
That's right. That's that two-way prayer, basically. When things align and people answer your questions when you walk away. And to me, that, again, not being in my own head or just like letting go and trusting the process. It's definitely taken an interesting turn, having a friendship and helping that person process. And again, I just shared my doodle art with her, and my experience. And I can just be objective and non-judgmental and leave that space for somebody. As a life coach, I just leave that space and I show them a picture. We all learn differently. I'm a very visual learner, but to see that person say, aha, I get it. That's all. If they want to be that better person and just get off that hamster wheel. We don't want to keep that cycle going. It doesn't happen overnight by any means. It was November of 2022, so, a little over 2 years that I've been working on these doodle art pieces, and for the most part, pretty consistent. It tells a story, a whole journey of growth. Last year, I did one in particular, and it's funny, one of my recent mentors, she commented this the other night. I shared it with her. In the middle, I put this little cloud, and I drew the stick figure, and in it, the little bubble, and I just had a scribbly. And I'm effing stuck. I didn't know my solution. I had like little visions and I did the thing and it was almost a vision board, but it was like, to recognize, my pain and fears, to let go. Like there was a lot of still pain. And that was in September of 2023 when I didn't know yet that I was actually moving here. Got here in November. Decided in October. So it was a month. And down in the bottom, I actually had moved to the beach. And I had walk on the beach and do one-on-one coaching. None of that was even a thought yet in my head and wasn't even in a process. The newest one I just did just within about a week ago, right in the middle, I did the same thing, the cloud, but I wrote, I am whole, like WHOLE. And on that now, I still have some like visions and other things and affirmations. just from September 2023 till now, so we're talking a little over a year, she even said, wow, you had your effing stuck and a scribbly line, which was my dots, to where I can just sit and say, Tommy is whole, have goals, understand, boundaries and my emotions, all that kind of was way different from one to the other. I did the same thing, and I didn't compare, but I said, oh, let me go back after I did it, the new one. I said, let me go back and see what I did. I thought last year, and I was like, wow. So those are things I suggest to people, not so much even if they're like, oh, I'm not an artist. You don't have to be an artist. Sometimes some of those mind maps we can do daily, just as little lists, as affirmations, looking in the mirror and saying, I'm proud of you for my own self worth and my own self esteem, to come home and say, oh, hey, I'm proud of you. You went to the grocery. Or sometimes it's just as much as I brushed my teeth at 8 and took a shower, if that's what I could do today. That's where I started many years ago. It's evolved. I had to, it's not easy. I had to take action. I had to go when I feel uncomfortable. Now I know when I'm uncomfortable, there's going to be a reward coming out the other side. I know there's something, if I'm just kind of sitting, I'm just kind of floating along. If I'm not too uncomfortable, and I don't mean chaotic and anxiety ridden, but when I'm sitting here and there's that challenge or there's a difficulty that I need to navigate, now I see in hindsight, there's going to be something good coming out the other side. Before, as a very immature teenager-minded Tommy, I would stamp my feet and hold my breath. But today, there's tools that I can have. I just love grounding myself out in nature. Wherever we are in the world, I'm sure we can find nature somehow. For me, that's the best thing, the sand. I still haven't really gone in the Gulf. Well, it's cold now, but just because of the water, I didn't trust it. But I go out on the sand, swimming, dancing. Body keeps score. Get that stuff going. Not only do I really encourage a lot of movement, sound, singing, all sorts of stuff. For me, still meditation not never, but didn't work early on. I ran on a treadmill. I lifted weights. That was my meditation because I have to count and lift those weights. I have to focus on it. So I had to stay there in that now.
It's about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like you said, like not stand your feet and hold your breath, because that's very uncomfortable. It's like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I can just be very uncomfortable with this conversation. It's fine. I'm fine. Can you describe what happens to you in the process of making it a product, an actual thing outside of you when you write it down?
Oh, for me, I almost use that two-way prayer process and let it come natural, organically. I just let it come out naturally, or from my experience. Like, it's two things for me, for my pieces. It's either something I'm stuck on, and now I need to learn about it. I'll put it down, and I'm going to write a little bit of my difficulties, or try to figure out. We have the internet, so we can find out, how do I change this behavior, or whatever. Now I visually see it. Or from my own experience, just the opposite. Now I just experienced something. That's where the Explore Your Kinks came in. I experienced it, and someone was talking about it. I did it. I don't have a doodle art piece like that, so I think I need to do it because I have lived through it. I found a solution. I do a practice. I practice something. I just noticed I love to grow in the background, to grow, because I think, like I said, if my doodle art career ever comes to an end, I stop growing, and so it's just a continual stepping stones. All these pieces all put together at least bring me to that next level of growth and character building, to tell my story, to others, to where they can identify and just, take a little piece of it and say, okay, I can do that. I can see that, whatever it may be, through it. That's pretty much what I have about the life coaching. I mentor women in a group, and I love doing that because I learn more than they learn. I'm not a teacher. By any means am I a teacher. I'm just someone who's guiding somebody through a journey and what worked for me. We sit in a group together and, let's just say, read a book. I love hearing their perspective, because that's where I learn. That's why I'm like, if I can't listen to someone else's perspective, I just, again, have my head up my ass. It's as rewarding for myself to be able to share my experience. Take what works for you. There's no right or wrong. There's no There's no rules, there's no time frame. It's where I'm comfortable. It's this leaving an open space for someone to be vulnerable, or learn at their pace as well. I learn just as much from that, but it also allows me to re-practice it and remind myself, because we can have forgetters easily. Maybe when some of those traumatic events get a little more further distance away from us, for me, then you get a little complacent on it or something. And working with people and through the same, whether it's coming out of a toxic relationship, addictions, the inner child, learning about dysfunctional families, it gets me back into it. Each time I can unpeel another layer, which actually brings me to, after 12 years, I had a conversation with my only and older sister. I have not communicated, I think it's been about 12 years. I'm not 100% sure, but that's the number I have in my head. I had a birthday in December, and through my web design business site, she emailed me, happy birthday. I was like, okay, I'll answer it. Doing my inner child work and all everything I've processed and all my therapy. I was like, okay. I said thank you. I mean, I didn't get too far, but I said thank you. And she told me that her phone number was in that email, and if I wanted to text or communicate, I said thank you. I might. New Year's came along. She said Happy New Year's. I acknowledged it. I texted her. We've had 2 very nice conversations. She's just about 8 years older than me. It's been great. I've asked her some questions because I have a therapist that's like, I'm doing that childhood timeline. I'm like, I can't remember past 5 years old. I'm trying to work through some of that. And I got to ask my older sibling a couple of questions or two. I said, wow, look at that. When I was ready to because maybe I wouldn't even be able to comprehend it, a couple of years ago, until I did this my own work here, this healing that I've done through my doodle art and my journaling. I said, well, that's what I know. It was just time. Because I asked her, why did you communicate with me? She goes, it was important. It was just time. Like, okay. We never were like these super close bonded, sisters. But I said, all right, that's good. Fair enough. It was good. Because I've been able to, I think, communicate with her some things that perhaps she had missed over the years. And I might ask her more questions. Through that, I was able to, change my behaviors, because before I was bitter, angry towards her. I wouldn't talk to her on the phone. I took it as this was just a sign for me to listen. I don't have to go back into the past and do any blaming and shaming, pointing fingers, or any of that right now. I come here and just meet her where she is now. I would have gave her a few choice words or just not even answer her, which I hadn't over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt good. Listening to my body today is so important. Does your heart race? Do your hands get clammy? Do you get jittery? Do you want to get jumped up? Jump up and run around? Can you focus? When I can't focus, I reach for one of my tools of maybe dancing for even 5 minutes. Put a headset on and dance around, whatever it may be. A little jumping jacks, just so I can, get back and get focused into that now. Writing a little bit, if I have the time. I would definitely not have been able to, and I feel calm about it. Like, it feels right, I guess. When I started that long distance relationship, there wasn't something that felt right, but I didn't know how to navigate it. I didn't know how to handle it, those emotions, or the fact that it felt comfortable from emotional abuse that I got in my early childhood. So today, I know if someone's energy or perhaps their boundaries. I learned I had 0 boundaries. I had no boundaries whatsoever. Abandonment was a big issue for myself, a lot of self-doubt. Until I could do that for myself, I couldn't recognize it. I know that sometimes I can say no. I know I can use my voice today. I know I can listen. I don't have to self-doubt. As long as I'm not hurting the other person, I'm going to listen to my intuition. Then also perhaps bounce things off of other, say, trusted advisors. Write it down. Pause. Pausing is one of the greatest tools. Same thing like, I'm hungry. I really want that chocolate bar. Let's think. Maybe I don't need to eat that chocolate bar because I had 2 earlier this morning. Maybe if I pause, and in like 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, guess what? I'm not in the mood for that chocolate bar anymore. Pausing and taking a minute sometimes, is one of the greatest tools. I'm my worst critic, my biggest critic, and beat myself up. But it's all just opportunities that are given to me and to grow Doodles by Tommy is definitely, I posted out there some stuff out there. I hope to hear from people. Somebody was telling me I print one. She was like, I printed this one and that one and put it by my desk to remind myself of something. I'd love to hear from more people who might do that. Doodlesbytommy.com. You can find more about my story on there. On my Instagram and Facebook is where I put my, I haven't put a lot of the art out there just of yet.
Mm.
Some reels so I can talk with people. That's been my mission. I'm always willing to, hear from people and work, with anyone in that aspect.
I will have so much to add to listen to your body, the pausing, and the one thing is usually the most like intense. So I feel like I really want the piece of chocolate, and they're like, okay, when you actually have it. So I feel like the one thing feels like it's such a pull. If you, I would love to hear about the kink part of it and like getting tips of how people can do that for themselves. I have a workshop coming up, something similar to it, like positive 5 things. Like you pick one and you do the little test that I send you, and then you pick one fantasy and we break it down. So it kind of will end up looking like a little doodle.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed sharing my story. I hope it's helped you or others. I'd love to have some questions. 2 of them in particular happened when I was still with the girl.
Mhm.
We were connected all day, like either through WhatsApp, through Zoom, texting. It was through sort of, we were talking, texting, and then it got in more into foreplay sort of talk. So then that's how that happened. One or 2 of them. It was like a morning wake up call, I think I shared with you, or I forget, or bondage. Or so that was us going back and forth. The Explore Your Kinks was more on my own. Is a recent one. Those other ones were kind of done sharing what I like, what you like. So maybe like what you're asking, how couples can do it, to put a word and then put little things that they like to do. Because that's what we did. Those little things are things we did. We kind of added them all in there, sort of what our experiences had been, or what I enjoy, what she enjoyed. But then the Explore Your Kinks is more so, people have been asking me, you want to be in a relationship? I'm like, I'm really not sure yet. I'm fine, but I'm not going to force it. I've been told, write down those relationship traits or things of what you like in your partner and be specific. Use and so on and so forth, not only just physical, but I need to be that person as well. So for me to be in a healthy reciprocating relationship, I believe that if I want respect, I need to give respect, or loyalty and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's kind of where I was manifesting, exploring my kinks. And those were some things just in a healthier way, because those other ones prior with that girl, it wasn't very healthy. I played into it as not wanting to be abandoned. It was more because when we were not doing that, it was just chaos, excitement in a bad way, and like I said, the gaslighting and my own stuff. So I was trauma bonded. I was addicted. I definitely played the game. Got these 2 dynamics going on. I'm a bit ADHD. Those traits then all kind of just really came out. So yeah, there was an addiction on my part. I have an addictive person. So that was our fun play in putting those words and saying things that we did or we want to do, we like to do. Whereas the Explore Your Kinks was my own manifestation of maybe where I want to go. That's kind of where that's kind of how I look at it.
Makeup says, I have been with my husband for 11 plus years and I still experience this. Now I know, I understand the science behind it, so I feel like a little bit guilty about it. Basically, the attachment system is saying, I'm not alone anymore. Like, you didn't abandon me, you're with me. I am wanted. What other way to be wanted than being completely naked and sewed together like this?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm the craziest one in our relationship. Sometimes I see myself, like there's a little voice inside of you that I always kind of know. Wisest voice inside of you. It's like, what are you doing right now? Just, I feel like that voice is not always up front, in control. Now I see myself doing like, if I don't give a shit about this, what are you doing? Now I understand a little bit of like how the dynamics are. Of course, there's a context of like both of your families kind of play a puzzle together when you get in this relationship. But it's very interesting because I feel like sexuality is like a window to seeing every other part of your life. But thank you so much for sharing the Exploring Kinks one with me, because I am going to take a closer look and I'll definitely make my own with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I like it. I don't know if I'm done with it yet. That's just it, the beauty of it. You know, it could be a living document as, you know, I don't want to say grow, but as I find where I do what direction I want to go, what I want in that aspect. To be just open minded, not judgmental, right? In anything in my life, I can't even be judgmental of myself. Yeah, that's how I look at it. But yeah, I love being able to all of a sudden go back to it. I didn't realize I have so much here.
I think that's it for now. I will add though, I always said with judgment is automatic. So that's just how our brain works. Like it's a practice of recognizing the judgment and leaving it aside. And thank you so much for gifting me your time. Like I love my job because I get to ask people very personal questions. This is really just to get used to being on camera because I hate it. I feel like at least in the past few months, this is the biggest shadow work I have had to do. That's how I'll make myself on camera and I'll automatically go, oh my God, look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, how I sound. Oh, it's being a lot. And this has been my
Right.
push through the discomfort, push through and understand where is that coming from? And at the end of the day, do you give a shit about it? Because if you don't, just let it go. Like
Right.
if it came from somebody else, and if it's yours, then fix it. Right? Like if you do care, then okay, so like do whatever you need to do. But if it's not yours, then why are you carrying it?
Right. I agree. I mean, I the good old saying is, it's none of my business what other people think, you know, and I'm with you. I understand, like, being in front of the camera. I don't script, like, my reels that I do put out there, because I want what's in the moment then for me to share, that somebody out there is going to hear something that might help them at that moment. And again, you know, like the two-way prayer. If ever you want to do two-way prayer writing, we can hop on a Zoom call.
Absolutely.
There's a little document they read, and I actually had it handy. Here it is. It starts off. I'm just opening a Word doc real quick. I'll email it to you. It starts off with a serenity prayer, and actually, I like the serenity prayer that says to change the people, or to change the person I know, and the person I can change is me.